Hello and welcome to episode 77 of the Arena Regulars podcast. I'm Zach.
And I'm Jeff.
And we're your source for weekly drunken Magic the Gathering arena content.
That's right. We're basically just two regular dudes drinking some irregular beer and talking about Magic the Gathering, in particular, the online client MTG Arena. But you know what, Zach? I have something really exciting to announce this week. Did I say we're just two regular dudes?
You did.
Well, this time, we're going to make that three. We have our first ever special guest on the show. I'm really excited about this. Some people who've listened before know we're doing a tap takeover. That's how we like to take a lot of our beers. And this week, we're getting started on collective arts. So we thought, you know what? Why not bring in someone who has a little inside knowledge of brewing a beer for collective arts? So I'm proud to announce Ryan. How you doing, Ryan?
I'm doing great, guys. Happy to be here. Happy to be the first guest on the Arena Regulars podcast. This is fucking sweet.
So, of course, we're going to rate this beer that you made. This is your recipe, right?
'Tis indeed.
But I thought it would be great if you could introduce it to us. So, Ryan, what's on tap?
So what we have on tap today is a beer called Parallel Futures. It is a German Schwarzbier, which is a dark lager. It's a very reasonable 5.1%, and it goes down real smooth.
It sure does. Whew. There's also this sweet picture of like this lady crying lava or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm down with that. Lots of like red and black magic card vibes happening
love it.
here.
Absolutely. But we have some magic news. This weekend is the new Capenna Championship. It's May 20th to the 22nd, and it's standard and historic. So we're going to be talking a little bit more about standard later in the episode just to kind of get ready for it.
And don't forget, the best of one play-in event to qualify you for the Magic Arena Championship is this Saturday, and it's sealed. You don't get to keep the cards, it's phantom sealed, but hey, gotta love a good limited event.
And we have a banned and restricted announcement. What? I wasn't expecting this, but here we go. So, Winota, Joiner of Forces, and Tybalt's Trickery are banned in Explorer. Tybalt's Trickery because that card is just annoying everywhere.
Yeah,
and
just fuck that card.
And Winota is all over Explorer, but they did say that they are going to watch it and unban it once rotation happens in I guess rotation doesn't even happen for Explorer. So once we get more cards that are like closer to Pioneer, they're going to bring it back because they don't think it's a problem in Pioneer. I don't know. Anyway, it's soft banned for like the next 5 months. So
Super weird.
weird.
All right. Next up, we have Dominaria United, slated to release on September 9th, and the Brothers War November 18th. So we kind of thought Dominaria United would be replacing the core set. It would be the summer set. But it sounds like they're doing more of a an Innistrad thing, like a Midnight Hunt, Crimson Vow kind of fall split. So I guess that just means we don't have a summer set?
Not so fast. It actually looks like we do have a summer set. It is going to be Alchemy Horizons Baldur's Gate. It will release on Arena on July 7th. And it's going to add 250 new cards to Alchemy and Historic. So, Baldur's Gate is a Commander Legends product. Can you play Commander on Arena?
Yeah, you can play Brawl.
No, sorry, I meant Commander. Can you play Commander on Arena?
Yeah, Historic Brawl.
Anyway, so
1v1, I should clarify.
So basically, the standard format we're going to talk about right now is going to be standard for the rest of the summer till rotation. No, nothing else is going to happen to this standard format. So, yay! I guess it is what it is.
Hopefully, you like the standard format.
Yeah,
it's not changing.
So we'll get more into that. But what we really want to talk about right now, Ryan Oliver, hello.
Hello, boys.
I just wanted to know, what's your beer journey? So you brew beer, of course. What's the story behind that? Where did that all get started?
Honestly, you can blame your co-host Jeff for sparking that seed. because the first homebrew I ever did was in his kitchen, and we made we tried to make a sessionable pale
Right.
ale, and then threw a bunch of sugar at it at the end, which increased the inevitable alcohol of the product. So it became what we lovingly referred to as an imperial session ale.
That's my kind of session. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, the session starts at 6%, right?
Yeah.
That's how it's supposed to be consumed. But yeah, that kind of like it kind of sparked it, and then I, picked up some of my own homebrew gear and started doing it almost monthly. Decided that I wanted to turn that into a career. Went to school at Niagara College. Picked up a couple gigs. I worked at a place called Equals in London, and then at Collective Arts for a bit, and now I'm currently at a smaller brewery in Hamilton called Fairweather. So that is kind of the journey thus far, and I love it. I love making delicious things that people can enjoy just for the sheer hedonism of it.
Well, we enjoy being able to drink the things that you make.
That's right.
So thank you for that. I do want to take this moment to quickly apologize for a comment I had made at one point. I might have brought this up on the show before, so people who are avid listeners have heard about you. But we were doing a War of the Spark draft, and you had brought some of your beer, and you were having our friend Dylan drink some of it, and he gave some of it to me. I might have been a little drunk at that time, but I did drink some of it, and the compliment that I gave you was, wow, this is so good, you could sell it. And you were like, well, okay, but can you give me some, like, what are the flavors in it? Are there any, like, profiles you can talk about? I'm like, no, I'm just surprised that, I would buy this. And so I want to apologize for that comment, because that's kind of, not
Compliment in quotation marks.
compliment in quotation marks. So I have realized the error of my ways now, so I apologize for that one.
All is forgiven. You needn't worry. A lot of beer descriptions, if anyone is familiar with the Untapped application on your phone, you can see people, they don't know what they're talking about. So.
Well, it's great to have an expert, because there's a possibility that we don't know what we're talking about either. Anyway.
I did just want to chime in, though, first and say, Zach says he's learned the error of his ways, but he actually trashed my homebrew just last week on the show. So
I didn't trash it. I just...
Rude to your own co-host. How dare you?
Well, or I guess he has learned the error of his ways, because he said it wasn't as good as a commercial beer. So he's figured out that saying it's as good as a commercial beer is not a
that's not... Go look at the tape. That's not what happened. I didn't say that. I just said... Whatever. I'm not going to get into that. Ryan, okay. I do want to know, though. So what is your favorite beer to drink? And then also, what is your favorite beer to make?
These days, my preference for consumption is fallen back to like traditional German styles, and that was kind of the impetus for wanting to brew a German dark lager with like traditional German malts, noble hops, etc. And it turns out, if you have the right equipment, they're also the easiest beers to make. No dry hopping to do, no fruit to add, no birthday cakes in the mash tun, etc. It's just grain, hops.
They're tough to make in your apartment in Toronto, though.
Yeah, it's damn near impossible unless you have a serious homebrew investment. But, I was leaning into the professional scale when I had this recipe, and the facility that made it had the capability to lager for 2 months. So you get that nice kind of almost nutty, light sulfur character that German yeast can impart on lager, which I love so much. But yeah, it's German styles, baby. That's where it's at.
So you're saying both to drink and brew?
I think so. Yeah, I don't mind, making IPA. But it's just, the market is so saturated with New England IPAs. I just feel like, it's like you're yelling into the void a little bit. Like, oh, I got another double dry hopped New England IPA. I'm like, great. So does everyone and their dog at this point.
Add it to the list. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Citra hops mosaic. Great. Yeah, it's old
Citra
hat.
hops. Never heard of that.
Those are delicious, though. I love those ones.
Don't get me wrong. I do love a delicious NEPA. I'm just trashing them because, I feel like the NEPA is the white aggro of standard.
Right in my feels. Oh, no.
We had to trash it.
Like, everyone knows it's good, but, nobody wants to play it.
That's exactly it. That's exactly how I feel about it.
Okay, so you like to drink lagers right now, and you like to brew lagers right now. But the way you said it, presumably that wasn't always true. You said you've sort of gravitated back towards those. So what I have to ask you now is what we call a mythic beer. So it's like in Arena, Mythic's the highest rank. Mythic beer, these are the all-time classics. When I say mythic beer to you, just an all-time, one of your favorites, best beers, what comes to mind?
I think, Jeff, you'll 100% have my back here because I would say a top-tier, classic style, mythic rank beer is everyone's favorite Quebec triple, Fin du Monde.
Absolutely. I was really hoping you were going to say that.
I was pretty sure you were going to say that, but...
Listen, there is absolutely nothing at fault with that beer, and I just can't find it anywhere these days, and I'm a little upset about that because it is just such a fantastic example of the style, made to perfection. And, the homebrew clone, Jeff, you and I did, was also fantastic. Yeah. I think that might have been the comment.
Yeah.
Yours, Zach, with the same 7. Might have been that.
Oh, no,
That's how good it is,
too.
Mark.
Okay.
I'm just trashing everybody's beer now. Is that what's going on?
Zach's the homebrew trasher.
So actually, I was wondering for you two, how many beers did you guys make together?
Not that many, but 5-ish.
A couple, 4 or 5, maybe.
It's hard to count too because we did one split batch. So does that count as 1 or 2? But we made a beer. We made like the base and then split it into 2 different batches and did different things to each one to see which one turned out better.
It's like getting a mana base and then making 2 different decks out of it. That sounds like a fun thing to do, though. But no, that's cool. I remember I think when we were doing our Theros draft at your house, Ryan, you guys were checking up on the beers at one point. And I was like, "Ooh, what's going on over there?" And I think that was the first time I realized that you made beer.
Yeah, I think that might have been like peak homebrew obsession. I had like a whiteboard dedicated to all the fermentation tracking, what the starting specific gravities were, when I put the yeast in, when we added the dry hops, when we added, like oak cubes or whatever.
Whatever
that that was definitely peak obsession.
Yeah.
Oh, there was some jank involved in the homebrew journey.
So then what is one of those janks? What is something that you tried when you were homebrewing and you were just like, that seems so cool. I was really excited. It just didn't get there.
Oh, I got one. It was particularly bad. I was like, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a stout. Stouts are fine, right? But I'm going to use Belgian yeast, and I'm going to throw berries and coffee and cacao nibs and all this. It was vile. It was so wretched. It looked like motor oil. It was like this viscous, oily, so many off flavors that I could now identify. This is undrinkable.
I remember that one.
But then some of my friends were like, "Oh, it's not that bad. This is hot garbage." But yeah, Belgian stout. There's a reason this style doesn't exist commercially, and I think I discovered this through homebrewing.
So, obviously, brewing is like your job. And do you do any little bits of homebrewing still, or is it just like everything's just what you're doing at work? Do you have little side projects?
Infrequently these days, because I don't have the creativity at work because I'm brewing other people's recipes and whatnot. But the beer we're having today, I actually managed to do a homebrew trial with it because the winter months were perfect lagering temperatures in the lower portion of our apartment. So great, we did get it. I still have some on tap actually.
Oh yeah, nice. That's awesome.
Have to pull a pint and do a side by side because the one recipe was the basis for the other.
That's cool.
But definitely not brewing monthly at home anymore because I'm doing it daily for
exactly.
money,
Yeah, and just I'm sure exhausting. And then you're like, you know what? I can do other things as well. I don't need to only make beer 24/7.
True. Use my spare time to play certain card game for adult men, or
I stand by that. This is people like to pretend that Magic's a children's card game. It is not. It is maybe interesting to children, but boy, did I play as a kid, and then I got older. I was like, I did not know what I was doing before. So that kind of brings us in. Ryan, I'm wondering, you play Magic, and that's why we're having you on the podcast. What's your Magic journey? Like, where did you start? What was like your first set, and like, did you come in and out, or all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I'm just going to correct myself because I said a game for adult men. This game is for everybody. I don't want to be gender specific. This is for everybody. And please, I don't want to be like gatekeeping for this fantastic hobby that, all of us have found so much joy in. But yeah, I started as a young man picking up some janky ass zombie deck, I think at the end of the Onslaught set, because my friend down the street had a box of cards and some what was it, Gem Palm Polluter, cycle, deal damage to zombie equal to the number of zombies you control, etc. Oh no, not you control, on the battlefield, because they still had that like blanket statement. It didn't matter if your opponent had zombies, you're still dealing the damage.
Made the janky zombies mirror real tough.
For sure. And then kind of walked away from it for a bit, and then got back into it when I was in college, when Zendikar dropped, and Fetch Lands and Jace and Stoneforge Mystics were all around. Granted, I didn't have any of those cards because I was a poor student. Spent all my money on fucking beer.
Priorities, man. Priorities.
Yeah, it's a hard balance, making sure you have enough cards for your deck, but also enough beers to drink at the event. Because how am I supposed to have fun if I'm not drinking at the event?
Totally. We were playing Pauper. Before we knew what Pauper was.
Playing Pauper by accident, by necessity.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, what really sealed the deal was Cons of Tarkir and that limited format, which I will stand behind as probably one of the best, at least for me, most fun limited environments.
Dude, I am with you. That was an amazing format. That's when I came back to the game too. I played in went to a random cons draft, and I was like, that was amazing. And then I just kept playing.
You guys are very lucky, because I came back at Magic Origins, like right after it, and I missed it completely.
Oof.
Just in time for like Ixalan or some shit.
Basically, yeah. No, just in time for Battle for Zendikar.
Oh my god, even worse.
Oh,
even worse.
Jesus.
So yeah, that's.
Can't believe you stayed.
Strong agree there, man. That seems like you're getting turned away at the door when you come back in that set. Yikes. It's Magic, man. There was a long period of time where I had to actively try not to play because I would wake up with no beer money, basically, and I'd be like, well, how am I supposed to live? But yeah. So I do want to know. We talked a little bit about your hatred towards mono white already. So, what archetype would you say that you are? Like, what's your favorite archetype to play? / like, what are your favorite colors and color combinations? I think as far as color combo, kind of leaning into my love of heavy metal as well, as like red and black all the way.
Yeah.
Whether it's like mid-rangey or sacrificey or spell-based, I think there's a lot of angles you can take with that color combination. That's lots of fun. It's like burn and discard, and usually powerful planeswalkers and removal printed in those color pairings. That's my jam. I like that kind of thing.
Dude, let's talk later, man.
Yeah, you too.
I got some red black action for you.
I mean, with this like latest land series, I might be leaning into the Jund train because they're kind of, Jund and red black share a lot of the things that I like about those color pairs.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a different angle.
Yeah, so not white blue like my favorite colors. Interesting.
I try to not play Basic Island in almost all of my decks.
To be fair, most of the time I'm playing Basic Island so I can play like Curiosity. That's about it. I don't.
I can respect that. If you're playing like counter spells,
he's rocking some spell pierce.
Well, yeah. Well, Spell Pierce and Mana Tithe, those are my favorites. But
Manatide, this guy. Come on.
I actually kind of like Manatide. There's nothing quite like getting got by Manatide. You can just laugh.
Yeah.
You're like, how did?
No one ever expects the butterfly. No one ever expects the manatide.
Yeah. So, I think I might know one of these, but do you have like a pet card? Like, what's either it's a card that's like super jank that you always wanted to make work, or like it's the Belgian stout of Magic, or it is like just some card that you always love and you have a hard time not putting it in a deck from like all of Magic history. Like, what's the one that you would wear around your neck?
One that I would definitely wear around my neck is everyone's favorite 0/1 vampire, and that is Blood Artist.
Nice.
I need some Blood Artist in most of the decks I play. Tokens, shenanigans, sacrificing, stacks of triggers because all of your creatures are dying simultaneously. I find that very enjoyable.
So how do you feel about Sanguine Brushstroke?
I mean, I feel like I'm being a bit hipster about it, and I don't want to play Blood Artist because that card exists. I don't want to play the Brushstroke because I feel like they've tainted it, and I was in before it was cool, before it was fun.
Before it like won a Pro Tour a decade ago. Or
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Now I'm like less keen to play the card because it's gone mainstream, man.
It's sold out.
Well, it is an artist. It's a blood artist, you know, so they did sell out, I guess. Now they're teaching everybody the brushstroke. Nice. All right, I have one final question for you, and it does pertain to this beer. So, if Parallel Futures, it does sound kind of like a Magic card. If it was a Magic card, what would it do?
This is a very interesting one because Parallel has been applied to Magic cards in the past. I'm thinking Parallel Lives.
Is this like actually a card? I wouldn't even be that surprised if there was a card called Parallel.
Wait, let me I'm going to look it up while you're talking about this because I wanted to do it earlier, but I forgot to. And I have been having throughout the entire week talking about this beer. I keep saying Parallel Lives in my mind. I'm like, no, it's different. It's not Parallel Lives.
I feel like this could be some future sight complete jank, and the text on the card would read like, if a player is going to take an extra turn, instead you take that many turns plus one or something like that. You know, like just like kind of leaning into that futures thing and the, you know.
Actually, that card would have been really
really
good out of the sideboard in the most recent standard.
That would have been cool. What color? Is it blue or is it...
Unfortunately, it's blue.
So it's for the mirror match.
It might be.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
I see your Nexus of Fate, and I'll play Parallel.
Alan's Epiphany, Parallel Futures. That's great.
Totally.
That's awesome. I did actually, sorry, I know that I said that was my last question, but it's not. Because I was interested, so this is more of a beer question. So, but like, you came up with the beer, you came up with the recipe. Do you get to name it? Do you get to name the beer? Did you name it this, is what I'm asking. Did you name it Parallel Futures?
I did not name it Parallel Futures. I wanted to call it Damnation Dark Lager, after everyone's favorite 2 colorless, 2 black destroy all creatures that cannot be regenerated card.
Nice. Card that needs to come to Arena, by the way.
I agree.
We have Wrath of God in Historic. That's the same thing.
It's not the same.
Did you hear what I said? White cards? I don't want to play them.
That one's double white. Get out of here.
Extra good.
Can't splash that in my Rakdos deck, unfortunately. But but yeah, like at the time, I was speaking to the head brewer at the Collective Arts Toronto location, Jeff, and another Jeff.
Wait, Jeff, you?
And
Sorry.
I was like, hey,
I actually work there.
he's got a side hustle. And I was like, hey, man, can we call this Damnation? And he wrote it in the marketing spreadsheet. And like, well, let's see if they change it. And apparently they did. So.
Well,
Immediately.
At least you have like your buddy on your side. It might have been one of those weird like, oh, we don't want anything that feels, I don't know, like it's like the pentagrams in Demonic Tutor and early Magic where they're like, oh, people are gonna worry that it's like satanic or something. We have to. I don't know.
Certainly. I think that might have been a portion of it. It feels like a lot of the beer names coming out of the Toronto location have 2 words, one of which is a pluralized noun, and they're very vague.
Yeah,
Like parallel futures.
that's true. That is fairly vague, especially with a woman crying lava on the front. What is that? Is that the other person's future? Is that what it is? Like, this is your... it kind of has that multiverse kind of thing. Everyone's about the multiverses right now. I could see that. Where it's like, oh, Spider-Man did it, so let's jump in the multiverse game, I guess. Magic's been doing that for a long time, so get out of here.
We invented it first.
We did. No, I had nothing to do with it.
Oh, really? They didn't consult you?
Yeah.
That's weird, man. I thought you were a shoo-in for consultation.
As like an 11-year-old, I was like, you know what? We should go to Mirrodin. It's a silver planet world universe.
And they're like, you son of a bee, I'm in. And that's how we got artifacts.
No,
We
actually,
got artifacts.
just artifacts.
This history is a little shaky.
Yeah, I don't know if that's true. No, I was actually very against silver artifacts. I was very much no, they should be brown. Fuck these silver things. Yuck.
I mean, those things did look awesome. If we could get arena styles that are, we say this all the time, but if we could get arena styles that are just old border, old, like, versions of the cards,
Yeah.
I would love that. I would buy them all. Those would be the only, like, aesthetics that I would really buy every time.
Yeah. Because the only other aesthetic that I've actually bought with, like, currency was the old border basics. And I was like, that's the only thing I care about.
I need those.
Yeah.
And then once I have those, I don't need to buy any of the other basics that
Ever
they
again.
sell, ever.
It's true. You just want those muddy brown artifact borders. And I'm with you there, big time.
I want to, like...
And they had, like, the cracks in them, they really gave you that feel of, like, ancient. Artifact used to actually mean artifact in Magic, and now it means, like, metallic.
Race cars and
Robots.
mechs and titans.
Yeah, it's not something you found in the ground. It's like something that you made in a warehouse, I guess. It's just any inanimate object that's not magical, which is up to debate, I guess, because sometimes they are magical. Anyway, we don't have to get into why artifacts are artifacts, but anyway, how are we doing on beers?
I'm ready.
All right.
You guys lagging behind here.
So let's just take a beer break, and then we'll get into some standard metagame.
Let's do it.
This beer break is brought to you by our patrons over on Patreon.
That's right. You're already supporting the show just by listening. But if you want to support the show even more, Patreon's the best way to do that.
And when you become a patron, you get an exclusive invite to our after party, which is a mini episode recorded immediately after this one where we ramble on about non-magic things.
Plus, if you're feeling bad for me because I have a co-host who trashes all the beers that I make, you can try to make me feel a little better by buying me a beer.
Or you can continue to buy me more beers.
But you really can't buy me beer. Don't try.
So go to patreon.com/arena regulars to vote on which one of us you like the most. I guess between me and Jeff, because I'm sorry you can't get one for Ryan.
Sad face. What a satisfying noise, eh?
So
Nothing
nice.
like that.
And this week we're drinking another one. We're sticking with Ryan's brew.
I had a backup just in case it was awful. had a Coors Light in the fridge just to wash it down.
I mean, if it's not a Bud Light peach seltzer, I don't want it.
That's like what Zach made me drink last week. So
To be fair, the Bud Light peach seltzers are pretty good.
I mean, I kind of want to try one. I really do. I don't know what it is. It's just like so heinous, but I feel like I need to try one.
Oh.
yeah, you just can't let anyone from your work see you. You have to like drive half an hour out of town.
Yep. Cover the can in duct tape just in case.
Awesome. All right, so we are going to move on to talking a bit about the standard metagame. Boy, does it feel like there's a lot of stuff going on in standard right now, right? It feels like that. I mean, there are some certain decks that you're like, this one I see all the time, but I definitely run into a bunch of other random things. So, yay.
So yay.
I don't know. In general, how does everybody feel? Jeff, you haven't said how you feel about standard at the moment. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I feel like it's relatively diverse. I think basically what's happening is there's one deck that is a huge portion of the metagame. and then everything else is like 5%. And so you have, the 35% deck, and then, 12 5%ers or whatever, 13 5%ers, which is cool. That's a totally reasonable place for the format to end up. And I don't think the number one deck, so to speak, is that it's not so strong that I feel like I can't beat it. So sometimes in the past, you've had decks like the Allrun's Epiphany combo deck, where it was like, I can't do anything if I try to brew something up, I'm just going to get trounced by that. So it doesn't feel quite as restrictive in that regard. What have you guys been playing yourselves? Have you been playing a little bit of everything, or just stick into one thing?
I have been playing a little smattering of everything. I've been playing that deck that you were alluding to, which is the deck, and then a few others. But kind of just going back to my favorites, playing some runes. I actually have not been playing mono white, so I know that we were talking about that earlier, but I haven't been playing mono white. That would usually be my deck to play, but since runes has kind of taken its place, that's what I tend to play. But Ryan, what are you playing?
I'm kind of right now brewing up two different things simultaneously. One is kind of Jund, but I haven't committed my wild cards to Obnixilis yet.
You got to.
I know. I really need to commit to that.
He's worth a slot.
But then I've got this green-white mid-range deck, and I'm really trying to push that to work a little bit. Kind of just, not quite super friends, but definitely running Wandering Emperor and Red and Seven. Trying to get some ramp action. It's fun to play. It does get trounced by this.
That sounds like white cards.
I know, but it's not white aggro. There's no Luminarch Aspirant to be seen. There are no Brutal Cathars here.
Oh, mistakes.
There are Skyclave apparitions.
Oh, okay. Well, come on. Like, that card's... But no. Nice. That's awesome. Well, I mean, I was going to say, I'm assuming that you're brewing something, because you're that's what you do. You're a brewer.
Yeah.
Brewing it up. Jank all day.
All day jank. Jeff, you're playing Rakdos. I know that's what's going on.
Actually, I am playing Rakdos. I'm playing an old school version, though. So I'm playing some old school Rakdos Sacrifice. We got some dorky 1-drops in the form of iTwitch, standard all-star. And one of our favorites, the chef. The chef that serves like the bowl of ramen.
Dockside
Dockside,
baby.
Yeah.
A card those are my 1-drops. Coming into the 2-drop slot, I landed on Skyclave Shade after we talked about it. That card was so good. I forgot about it.
For that card.
Yeah.
Put it back in, and I haven't gone back. I'm not taking it out again. The card's just too dope. And a card that nobody seems to be playing, which is the Reckless Riveteer, I want to say. Something like that. Riveteer Requisitioner. So he's a 3/1. When he dies, you make a treasure token, and he has...
Right. Blitz.
Card is so good. It's very, very good. Especially when you're getting value out of sacrificing it. Because you blitz it, attack for 3, sack it, draw 2 cards, draw another card, make a treasure token. It's sweet.
Yeah. When it just said Riveteer and it was red, so I just assumed it was terrible. But
yeah.
But
no, it's good. And obviously we have Obnixilis, sort of 4x reason to play the deck. And card I'm very happy with, which is Bloody Betrayal. So I am straight up playing Active Treason in Standard and loving it.
wow.
Shout out to our friend Chris, who would always
every
draft
deck
of
had
that.
3 or 4 Active Treasons.
I mean, that's a good one.
There's nothing quite like stealing your opponent's creature and then sacking it to an Obnixilis. There's nothing quite like that.
And then hitting them for 4? That sounds awesome.
Yeah. I played against some crazy reanimator deck that was doing the white reanimation spell, get back the dragon with haste kind of thing.
The deck that you were playing?
They had an 8-power creature, and I stole it and whacked them with it, and then sacked it to Obnixilis.
And then
The
ultimate.
problem was I didn't get to ultimate because his plus was lethal, because my opponent had no cards in hand, and they were at 4, so I just plus. But that was a bummer.
Well, you could just.
Do it for the memes.
Yeah,
do it
do
for
it
the
just
memes.
do it anyway. Think, ultimate.
Ultimate.
I'm at like 6 life, so I die.
I mean, but no. It says target player though. You could aim it at them.
You could kill them
Yeah.
with it, man.
Oh, where were you, man? I could have won with the ultimate.
I have
No, I double plus.
The reason I say that is because I have died to the ultimate that my opponent had, where they pointed it at me, and I was like, I'm milling my deck with my like snooping newsies, and then they're like, Obnixilis ultimate pointed at you. I'm like, fuck you! I only had 7 cards in my library. Damn it!
But yeah, I think the deck's pretty competitive, and it's a lot of fun. No one ever expects active trees in the standard leagues, or what are they called? Standard events.
If you like, that's a really good card against runes because I would never see it coming. I'd be like, I got this fucking.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's-
you
that's
steal
good.
something huge, lifelinker too. It's awesome.
Yeah, and then sack it, and then you get the biggest Obnixilis ever, and then you plus. You're like Obnixilis loyalty 11 plus. That's
I
rude.
don't want 7 cards or a devil token. I want
I
you to take
want you to lose 2.
Oh, it's got to feel good when you take their like 12/12 Trelasara Moon Dancer, and you're like, well, I'm
Yeah.
gonna smack you with it now.
Boom. Take that.
Thanks for giving it trample and lifelink.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Anyways. You just lost 3 cards. Awesome.
seriously though, almost every game comes down to like, if I top deck active trees and I win.
And that's what
That's a
is
good
always-
place to be in life, in standard.
that's what an active treason should do. Instead of like steal your 1/1 bird token, you know.
And the blood token brings it pretty close to like already just being playable on its own.
Well, nice.
Guys, I feel like we beat around the bush a little bit here. We didn't actually talk about what the 35% deck is.
Yeah, we should talk about the best deck in the format.
Look at that. Our special guest is bringing us back to the notes.
Sorry,
Come on.
second best deck. We already talked about the best deck.
Oh,
Right.
shoot.
Active treason
Yeah,
and
yeah,
standard
yeah, right,
Rakdos.
right. So, of course, we're talking about the Esper mid-range deck, which is just aggravating.
It has everything. It has control. It's got mid range. It's got aggro. I feel like it can attack you from every angle, and there's not much you could do about it.
No.
If you don't top deck that removal, it's toast. And like, oh, even if you do top deck that removal, there's a ward or there's a shield or some nonsense.
Yeah. So, what is like? Obviously, the card that really helped is just the Triome to give them good mana, because that's what they were waiting for from the set. But like we've talked about Obscura Interceptor a little bit on the show, just saying like this is kind of the place where it wants to be. But really, the card that I think brings it together is this freaking legendary creature, Rafine, Scheming Seer. I hate this card. I hate it. It's so it's so good, but I hate it.
I love it. When you steal it, it loots for you a few times. So
Yeah,
that's
but then
pretty
your
sweet.
active treason costs 4. That's no good.
It does. Yeah, that is annoying.
Where's Wrangle?
It usually means I can't Obnixilis as well. I have to like, just village rights it or something.
How many Kazul's Fury are you running, Jeff?
Zero Kazul's Fury.
I think that needs to be 4.
Needs to go up to 4. I have 8 black 1-drops, which is kind of what I don't love about it. But I don't love the red tap lands.
Yikes.
Yeah, that's a
But I'll take it under consideration.
Appreciate it.
But yeah, obviously Rafine has just turned out to be like it reads okay. When you read Rafine and spoilers, you're like, okay, pretty good, I guess. When you play against it, it almost has pseudo haste because the 2 creatures they already had now get to they get to distribute 2 counters. Like Rafine drops, and then immediately they're getting some benefit from the attack, which is I think something that was a bit lost on me in preview season. You have to like play against it to see that. Oh man, now they get to loot 2 and put 2 counters on something if they so choose, and like I can't kill that. I can almost never kill that in response, like at instant speed on turn 3 because of the ward. So, yeah, Rafine is just a lot better than it looked, I think, and is really pulling this deck together.
Yeah, I feel like it just falls together so well if they can loot a Tenacious Underdog. They play Ravine on 3, Tenacious Underdog in the graveyard on 4, so if they don't hit anything off of these connive draws, they already have a play that's just sitting in the bin. It's
so dirty.
Yeah.
And then, like, all of the... You know, it has 4 toughness, but if you let it attack even once, it's going to go up to 5. And a lot of, you know, the removal you would use on it can't deal with 5. Like, even the card I sideboard in for it is the -4/-4 to a white creature. And it's like, you have a 1-turn window for even that to work, and that's the card I sided in. Like...
Yeah.
It's...
Yeah, you're looking at Infernal Grasp, maybe a Demon Bolt that's been foretold.
Yeah.
Like, what else is there to remove this thing on 3 when it comes down?
There's, like, Ray of Enfeeblement, and then you can play the, what's the one that you sacrifice an artifact and it deals 4? From Kamigawa?
Voltage Surge.
Yeah, Voltage Surge.
But again, a lot of that stuff's 4, right? And then it can also get out of range of burn down the house if you're relying on that.
Super
it's not
fast.
that hard for it to get up to 6 toughness.
Meat Hook Massacre is not going to do it. I guess you need to...
You need to create a bunch of treasures to get it with Meat Hook Massacre.
Yeah. I've been playing Borrowed Time, which is just like the Oblivion Ring, which helps because it doesn't matter how big it is, but it still costs 4.
So like 4 mana sorcery speed, right?
Yeah, and they're just gonna use their like Obscura Interceptor to bounce that back to your hand. So it just like it.
Whenever they have priority and they wait for you to pay the ward, you know shit's done.
You're like, it's like this sucks. Oh man,
It feels so bad.
So-
It feels so bad.
You're like, I almost don't want to pay it, so that I don't feel quite as bad when
Yeah,
I
you're
pay
like, you
the
know what?
extra
No,
mana, and then you just counter.
I'm gonna counter my own spell. It just like it's so frustrating. Yeah, and this deck's just like really strong. And you know what it doesn't really run is freaking Void Rend. Like it doesn't need the card. It doesn't.
Yeah. Some versions do. I think it depends on how good Vanishing Verse is in the format. If Vanishing Verse is really good, then you don't need to run Void Rend. If people start to move towards more multicolored permanents, then you got to play some more Void Rend.
Yeah, I was quite surprised looking at some of these Esper deck lists and not seeing any copies of Void Rend. I'm like, this seems like a slam dunk for those kind of decks, but it's just like it's a win more card for the deck. You don't even need it because it's already so powerful.
It's because the Wandering Emperor is going to exile something, or all your other stuff does things. It just feels like when I'm playing in runes, like, and I'm playing against this deck, I have to just put a bunch of my enchantments onto the Jukai Naturalist because it can't get hit by Vanishing Verse, and you got to do something else. You can't Vanishing Verse this. You're gonna Vanishing Verse.
And you don't attack with it because
It's just a.
you don't want it to.
It's
get
a
hit by
3/2.
Wandering Emperor, so you
Yeah.
put all of your auras on a creature that never attacks.
It's just the worst. You have to like need the freaking the Visitor, the little 1/1 that puts counters on it, or you need Showdown of the Scalds to get it. It's so frustrating. Anyway. This is the deck to beat. We were thinking it was going to be more of something with. I'm just surprised that it doesn't have Obnixilis. It's not doing Obnixilis things, and it can get on the board really nicely to deal with Obnixilis. It is. It's the whole thing, man. It's everywhere. It's not even playing Farewell. Yeah. It's a good deck.
Yeah. Now, that being said, like I was sort of saying before, I don't think it's so good that it... Like, I think this is a totally fine deck to have be the best deck. Mm-hmm. You know, it's playing 3 colors.
I agree,
It can lose to its own mana. It's more of a mid-range deck. It's like tap out mid-range kind of stuff, which is totally fine. And even when it has its nut draw, it doesn't just feel like you just lose the game. Like, there's some stuff you can do to fight it. And I beat this deck plenty. Like, I don't know what my overall record is, but it's not like I'm 0-30 against this deck. You know, it's like
I'm definitely not 0-30, but it feels like it. It feels like it,
yeah.
And it definitely makes me wonder if my deck choices are really bad. Because I'm like,
I think
I'm like,
Ryan, I'll have to see how you feel, but I think playing a mid-range mirror match against this deck is kind of fun.
Yeah, definitely the games that I've played against this deck with either my like black red or Jund nonsense have definitely felt winnable. I didn't end up winning those games, but there was definitely a solid back and forth. But then, you can kind of see the tipping point in these matches where like, well, I cannot catch up at this point. They're just getting too much card advantage from the underdogs, or like I've seen some of these lists are running Null Priest of Oblivion. So when you finally deal with Rafine, they just get it back on turn 6 or 7. You're like, well,
yeah, the werewolf, the black werewolf is very good against them.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. What is the
Graveyard
Trespasser?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I am a huge fan of that card, and I think that's going to be hopefully get in the top 8 this weekend, taking care of these tenacious underdogs that are all over the place.
That's definitely a reason to play that card. I don't like Graveyard Trespasser because it's always played against me, but yes, that is a good card.
You're like, fuck, how am I going to beat this card?
Yeah. Anyway, let's move to some other stuff. Let's talk about some Obnixilis decks. The ones that I thought were going to be like this is week 3 of Standard since the set came out. So this is the card I thought that was going to be everywhere. It's going to be the big man. It was Obnixilis is going to run everything, and instead, I mean, he does work absolutely. That's a fantastic card. Definitely worth playing, but somehow not on the tippity top. What between Rakdos and Jund for those? What do you guys think is the build you would like? I mean, I guess I already know you guys like the Rakdos one, but let's just talk about it.
So I think people expected Obnixilis to be like Oko for some reason, where it's just like amazing and you should always play it and you have to be playing it. And it's like, this card is so clearly an aggressive card that it's strange to me that people are jamming it into like pretty slow 3-color decks. So I think you want this in a Rakdos deck that's a bit lower to the ground, because if your opponent can just say, okay, I take 4, then the card didn't really get you anywhere, because it's like, sure, 4 damage could end up mattering, but it also might not if your deck's not aggressive. I've loved this card in my red-black deck because I go 1-drop, 2-drop, then this. They're already at 15. They take 4, they're at 11, and I have 2 of these planeswalkers in play. Like, they really have to do something about it. They can't just, I think in these decks, you like make a devil token, you hit them for 2, then Obnixilis goes away, and then you got like a devil token and 2 damage out of your 3 mana and a creature you sacked. So, yeah, I mean, I think people are just assuming that the Asika's Chariot combo is the way to go. And obviously, if that happens, if you go 2-drop into Obnixilis into Asika's Chariot on the play, you're probably going to win. But it's just the deck is so slow. Like, they're playing a bunch of, Fable of the Mirror Breakers, which takes 3 turns to do its thing. Meathook Massacres in the deck, and they're not sacking stuff. Like, this one I'm looking at on Magic Touch EG has, like, Titan of Industry in the deck. It's like, you're playing... I just don't think you want to pair Obnixilis with Titan of Industry.
Yeah, I took this deck list to play this deck, and that's the first card I took out, was Titan of Industry. I was like, I'm not crafting this card, and I don't need to play this.
They're playing, like, main deck Duress. Like, this is just not the shell for Obnixilis. And he's still going to be fine, so it's hard to diagnose the problem. It's going to look like he's just not as good as you thought. But if you put him in a really low-to-the-ground red-black deck, he's going to look a lot better. The problem is everyone's playing Meathook Massacre, so it's hard to justify playing a red-black aggro deck. So you have to play one that doesn't care about Meathook Massacre, too. And that's why I'm playing red-black Sack, because it's like, none of my creatures are worth wiping them. You can wipe my like triple eye twitch if you want. I don't care how much.
Yeah, and if you've got Skyclave Shades to come back at any point, then the concession I would make for pushing Jund is I think people, and I don't know, I'm a fan of this card. Maybe it's because it's just Jund, is like Riveteer's Charm. I'm kind of on board with this, and I don't think it's seeing as much play as it should, just because of the versatility.
So
and I think like of the charm. cycle that they released during the set. Like, I think Riveteer's Charm is the only one that's close to playable. I think it's playable. The other one's hot garb, but
I think
that's
it's
just
great.
my take.
But I think that might be a different deck, right? Like, you're not even playing Obnixilis. You're
Yeah,
saying
exactly.
partially
Because
because of wild cards, but also, I don't know if you want it in that deck necessarily.
yeah, I think you need to have a slew of one-drop creatures with mild upside to make Obnixilis worth it. Because if you're just relying on your Blood Tithe Harvester or Tenacious Underdog as fodder for Ob,
Right.
then
like,
you've
you're
shot
sacking
yourself
a
in the
real
foot.
creature. Yeah. Like, when you sack a Blood Tithe Harvester, sure, a blood token gets left over, but you just sacked your, like, legitimate 2-drop. When I sack a Skyclave Shade, I'm like, that's coming back. Like,
Yeah, you definitely need some number of Eye Twitch, Shambling Ghast.
right. Eye Twitch
Whatever.
replaces itself already, right? So
Yeah.
Be curious to see what the pros do.
Yeah, I mean, I have seen the same kind of thing that you're saying. I tried playing this Jund deck, like I was saying, and even when you have the 3 Obnixilis on board and they're all ticking up, and you can still lose. Like, you can still lose to flyers or just like wiping your board, and then like you're just dying to like creature lands, like stupid shit like that just like happens, and you're like, well, all right, I did the cool thing of copying it, and then I had 3 copies of Obnixilis, and I still lose. So then this is definitely not the deck for it. I'm not a big fan of this Jund version. I think you're right. The Rakdos one is the way to go if you're playing Obnixilis.
I do want to talk a bit about Riveteer's Charm, though, to your point, because I agree that people should be playing more of this. I mean, speak of how difficult it is to remove Rafine. Like, this doesn't even have to target it, so this is a 3-mana way, instant speed way to get it off the table that doesn't require targeting. But okay, so what is that dragon? The 4-drop that they used to play in Gruul, and it like cares about multicolored permanents.
Oh, not Moonveil.
Oh,
Regent,
Manaform
but the
Hellkite.
other one.
Moonveil, yeah.
Oh no,
Manaform
No.
Hellkite. What?
No,
do we
Moonveil
do we
Regent.
mix-
Moonveil region. Oh, right. No,
Yeah.
Manaform is the other one with the instance sorcery. Sorry.
So I had an opponent play at some sort of Jund deck that was a little slower, and they had Moonveil Regent in play and 1 card in hand, and then on my end step they cast Riveteer's Charm, and because of Moonveil Regent, it let them draw 3 cards because it has 3 colors, and then they exiled 3 cards from the Riveteer's Charm, and so it was literally a 3-mana draw 6 on my end step.
Hell yeah. That's the stuff right
I was
there.
like, what just happened to me? I thought I was way ahead. They had a fucking single creature and 1 card in hand. I thought, there's no way I'm losing this game. And then by the next turn, I was like, there's no way I'm winning this game. You can't just draw 7 cards, opponent. Like,
Ugh.
what are you doing over there?
Woof.
So that's something I definitely want. I wish I'd like written down this person's username so I could shout them out here. But this was a random league I was doing. And it was very cool, and I was like, I kind of want to go build a Jund deck with Moonveil Regent and Riveteer's Charm, just for that interaction alone.
That sounds.
But then they also had like Ziatora, which when they sacked the Moonveil Regent, did approximately 10,000 damage because it did 4 from the Moonveil Regent, and then the Moonveil Regent died, but they had 3 colors because of the Ziatora, so it did another 3. And I was just like, man, that was a 7 damage split among any 2 targets they wanted, and they got 3 treasure tokens, and they drew 3 cards off the Z.
That's insane.
So
That's so cool.
that was a pretty fucked up.
Yeah. So I've seen some of these deck lists using Ziatora and different things. I haven't seen one with the Moonveil Regent, and I haven't ever played against it. So I thought it was just fake. I was like, I don't know. No, I've never seen this in the wilds. But hearing that makes it a lot more interesting.
Oh,
I know.
I'm playing this deck now. Thank you so much, Jeff, for guiding my hand. Because I definitely burnt a wild card on Ziatora today. Were they running Obnixilis? I'm curious in this deck.
I didn't see it. I think they were doing more of the Jaspera Sentinel Magda power start kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
Which also empties their hand for the Moonveil Regent.
Oh.
So it's like
That's
it was
sweet.
when it was running, it was pretty good.
Wow. Awesome. That's See, this is what I'm talking about. Standard does feel great right now. I think so. Like, I do feel like we're running into a bunch of different things. And one of the decks I really wanted to talk about that just came up is there's an Is It Control deck that's around. And it stone rains the shit out of you if you are greedy. Have you seen this deck?
Is it the Arcane Bombardment deck?
Yes. So this one basically it's playing 4 main deck cleansing wildfire. Is that what it's called? And its main plan is to say it's 2 colors, of course, and the game plan is to get Arcane Bombardment on the battlefield and have Lear to recast all of your different instants and sorceries. But Cleansing Wildfire, that's the card. This card, fuck this card, man. Well, the thing is that, like, because I'm playing runes, I know this is a deck that was going around, so I ended up adding a couple extra basics to my mana base. But if they can play this card 7 or 8 times in the game, and Field of Ruin, how they're just getting me off all my colors. Like, if you're playing 3 colors, this is the one that punishes you for playing 3 colors. This is the one that's like, it can't really beat mono white, but it beats a lot of the other 3 color decks because woof, is it rough? And it was 2 mana Stone Rain that draws you a card. Pretty good. It's pretty good. So it's a reason to run more basics in all your 3 color decks. You must have, I think, 2 or 3 at least, because if you don't get a card back immediately, it's really bad.
Oh yeah. And like, if you're playing Esper, and your goal in life is to play Rafine, they can, even though you might have a basic to go get, it may not be the one you need to play Rafine.
Yeah.
So they can still kind of get you. And I'd be really interested in this in an open decklist event too.
Yeah. To know when to do it.
Because then you like look at your opponent's deck list. I scroll up here to the Esper mid-range deck they have on magic.gg. 1 swamp. That's their basics.
Oof. Feels bad.
You don't want to play against Wandering Emperor? Hit their white source. They're not going to get 2 white.
No. And the like that just becomes the problem. And the thing is that, like, this deck knows that's what it wants to do. So it will turn 2 Cleansing Wildfire your thing.
Oh yeah.
Turn 3, then they're going to play freaking what's that card? Expressive Iteration, and then continue to play more, and then Lear comes down and they replay all of them. Like, I had this deck turn 3 cracked their Field of Ruin just to blow up anything that they could, knowing that because there was like game 2 or 3 in the match, and they already counted how many basics I had by the times I could search my deck and take them. So after that, they already know, oh, you have 2 basics, so I'm just going full steam ahead. Just get rid of all your colors. Ugh.
Well, something that's worth calling out, like the deck list I'm looking at, again, this is the one they posted as a preview for the big tournament. But we're looking at 2 Fading Hope, 1 Voltage Surge, 3 Spikefield Hazard, and 2 Flame Blessed Bolt. So that is 8 1-mana interaction spells. So they can Field of Ruin, get a land, and then play something. So they are already deciding, building this deck, they want to Field of Ruin you on turn 3, and then have something else they can also do after they do that.
Yeah. It is gross. We were talking about, like, the fact that Big Score is going to be in conjunction with the Express, or what's the other one? The Windfall, right? And they're like, have more? They're like, no, we can just play Big Score. We don't need the other one. It's fine. And they do. And this deck was miserable. At least in a Runes matchup, it was really miserable. If you can deal with Lear, I'm sure it's a lot easier, but...
See, I played against this deck and thought it was a meme because I was just playing against it. I was like, okay, go get my swamp, go get my mountain, go get my mountain, go get my swamp. And then I'm just like, plus Ob Nixilis, plus Ob Nixilis. Like, you are running out of life, sir. So
yeah.
You can Field of Ruin me all you want. I'm on 2-color deck, though.
Yeah, they're not angling for you, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was a little annoyed that they weren't playing any creatures for me to steal. That was kind of a
That's
bummer.
fair.
But
Although
I did get to steal Lear and cast a Village Rites out of my graveyard, which which was sick.
Yeah, that seems pretty slick.
Pretty sweet.
I've had a couple of historic games playing green-red Ponza where I stone rain their land on turn 2 and they just concede. So
You are on the right podcast. Man.
Yeah, so the thing is that, like, number one, this Stone Rain deck that we're playing right here, or talking about, miserable to play against for this event I was playing, but it was the first one I was like, what is the deck list and how can I have this to play it? Because stone raiding people out of Oblivion sounds amazing.
yes, big time.
Yeah, it's something that Commander players should do more often. Get some of it in your blood. It's really fun.
So I had a similar, not a similar idea, but I also figured Cleansing Wildfire and Field of Ruin would mess people up. So I built a green-red deck that topped out at Waking the Trolls or something, whatever that card is.
Oh, I have made this deck too. Mint. It is so fun. You don't win, though.
Yeah, so I took it through a league. First game, mono green aggro. I was like, my opponent plays Snow-Covered Forest. I'm like, should I concede? There's no way my opponent turn 1 Snow-Covered Forest can be good for me.
Yeah.
Then I played against mono white. Then I played against the same mono green aggro deck that I played against, but it's not the same person, but it must have been the same list, so they obviously got it from somewhere. But the other thing I forgot to mention about this list, it had multiple main deck, what's that green card that gives any permanent hexproof?
You're talking about Tamio's safekeeping?
Yeah, Tamio's safekeeping. So they would just give their land hexproof.
Oh, that's awesome!
I was
Wait.
like, man, how am I matching this thing? Like, that's bullshit.
Oh my god, that's what I needed to do. Oh, in my runes matchup, I played that card. Fuck, I forgot that said permanent. Damn it.
Permanent. There you go.
That's awesome. Oh, I love that so much. They don't even get to draw their card. Sorry, from the Cleansing Wildfire. I'm still thinking about that deck.
I would never Field of Ruin them because I was so sure that I was just going to blow up my land and not get anything.
That's brutal.
That sounds amazing. I like that so much.
So then I was like, not enough people are being greedy. I guess I should throw out the idea of Field of Ruin plus Cleansing Wildfire. But also, this deck is a lot better than the one that I built.
It's a lot better when you get to replay all of them. But I'm excited to see what happens this weekend with this deck because, well, I hope I like that it punishes the greedy ones. You know, it's like, hey, best deck, the 3 colors is not running any basics. Fuck you for not playing basics. I love that. It's good for you. Good for you. Is it control? I would never say that. It's one of my least favorite archetypes. I don't really like Is It Spellslinger decks, but good for you.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan can never play this deck. There's 3 islands in it.
I mean, I will bend when there's land destruction involved. Let's throw that on the table there.
Fair enough. Although I'm looking at this particular deck, which I think was taken from somewhere, and there's just no way this mana base is right, because it has like way more blue than red, and every card in the deck is red. But I wonder if they like get screwed by their own mana base, which is kind of like judgment, like it's karma.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you're getting treasures. They only run 1 Prismari command. That seems wrong. But like the big score, you're gonna get some correction there. Prismari command.
Yeah, but you're gonna have like 2 Hall of the Storm Giants, Otawara, Soaring City, and a Field of Ruin. You want a big score, but you have to crack the Field of Ruin first because you didn't draw any red sources because you played all of these single blue things, and your deck is entirely red cards.
Yeah, I guess you kind of lean into the Spike Field Hazard and Shatter Soul Smashing as mild.
Oh, that's true. Those are lands
1
I'm not
Celestis.
really counting.
Yeah, Jeff. They built their mana base right.
I still don't think it's right. But
I don't know.
I'll run the numbers on this. I'll pull up a Frank Karsten article.
Yeah, there you go. You do that.
I'll do the calculation.
I will trust the internet. Internet, tell me how many to play, and I will add a basic. That's what I do. Now, that's my...
Frank Karsten versus the internet.
Is that a podcast? I will definitely listen, please.
Wow, we should talk to Frank. We should tag Frank in this.
I feel like that's all of his articles. The comment sections of all of his articles.
That is definitely true. Man, Frank, we need some more master classes because the last one he did was awesome. Anyway, so coming into a little bit more aggressive white decks, I think is what we need to talk about. But I do want to talk about mono white is obviously there, and not a lot has changed as far as that aggressive deck. But we do.
Has anything changed?
I think it might just be some of the numbers. But another deck that plays Legion Angel is the Orzhov Angels deck, and it is a creature deck that's fast, but I do like it. I like creature decks. I think it's there. I think it's nice. It's always great when the best common from the draft format makes it into standard somehow. That is always nice. So
I do like that. I'm a little dubious that card should be in the deck, but hey, what are you gonna do?
I also agree that I don't know if it should be in the deck, but it's an angel that draws a card, so there you go. They're still playing that frickin' 2-mana card. I thought Giada was going to be good enough to make sure that none of the Kaldheim cards that weren't actually in the real set would make it into this deck, but lo and behold, they still play Youthful Valkyrie. That upsets me a little bit, but what you gonna do?
Yeah, I mean, mostly when I play against angels, I feel like, because there's Esper angels or there's black-white angels, I usually feel like a sigh of relief. I see the black-white lands, and then an angel comes down. I'm like, oh, okay, thank you. It's like, I know I'm not playing against the Esper deck. I've seen some that just play Rafine, just because, whatever.
I mean,
I'm a Esper creature deck. I'm gonna play Rafine.
That's a great creature.
And I think that if you're playing angels, that's probably right. That's probably the right thing to do. But then at that point, you slowly start removing the angels from your deck and just morphing into Esper. But
it's interesting that you feel a sigh of relief, because I feel a little bit of panic in the sense that if I don't win this game, what does this mean about me? Because I also don't think that the deck is very good. I'm happy that it's around, and I think Giada is strong if you don't kill it immediately. But it is very much, and as I've said the whole podcast, I'm playing runes. I don't have any removal spells, so Giada does get out of control quickly. I just have to be better and faster than them. So it's mostly like, all right, I don't want to lose to this deck. Oh, but I definitely can.
you definitely can lose to it. It's probably tier 2, right?
Yeah, when they get going, and then like the toughness, and then they get the bonus from Righteous Valkyrie, it kind of gets out of hand, and it dodges the Meat Hook massacres and damage-based removal spells of the world, and then you're like, well, shit, they're all in the air, and I'm sitting here on the ground with nothing I can do. So, I mean, respect to that. Mm-hmm. Good for them, like, shooting the metagame and a bit of a side angle here and taking to the skies.
Yeah.
And getting big butts all over the place.
Jeff, I do want to know, have you been able to steal one of their Righteous Valkyries? I guess your life total wouldn't be huge. But stealing their anthem sounds pretty good.
Yeah. Stealing Righteous Valkyrie is really common play against this deck because it's just so much toughness. That usually it's just the best thing to steal because it's their best blocker. Mm-hmm. And it's, like you said, the thing you want to kill because it gains them life. Even when it's not an anthem, it's just gaining them too much life. So, this deck gets really messed up by stealing their creature and then sacking that creature to exile one of their other creatures. That really does a number on them.
Yuck.
So this is a very positive matchup for me because it's all just like dorky creatures with no protection.
Have you done the post-combat steal while the damage is still on the creatures and then have them go their toughness to 0?
That has never come up.
Ooh, that sounds fun.
So
I'll have to keep that in mind though. It's like that play often is an option, but then there's something else that's better. It's like, and I don't want to just do that because it's fun. It's funnier.
Yeah.
Well, if you're streaming and I'm watching you, I expect you to do this.
Yeah. Meat Hook for 3. Steal your anthem.
Now you're talking.
Opponent would be like, why didn't they just Meat Hook for the full?
Anyway, whatever. Because it looks cool. Awesome. Anyway, the last deck I did want to talk about, I didn't write this down. And I don't know if it's a huge part of this metagame, but have you run into not mono white aggro, but mono white control? Have you seen this deck?
No. Pray tell.
I think I've seen a list. I've never seen it in the wild.
I have played against it. I was able to I think beat it, but I remember being like, what is happening? And it is a similar game plan of I'm mono white and I'm playing a bunch of creature lands and I'm also playing a bunch of Field of Ruins and fuck your mana base. And I'm gonna play Farewell when you get to like big. It's just like Wandering Emperor, Farewell, a bunch of creature lands and some like good white cards. But it's just like I remember being like, huh, this is weird. I'm gonna lose to what's that creature? The colorless creature land from Zendikar that you pay for, and then you put 2+1/+1 counters on it, and then
Crawling
barons.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I'm gonna lose to that because it's getting bigger and bigger, and they're blowing up all my lands. Which is like, this is so ridiculous. How is mono white doing this now? Field of Ruin. New best card in the format. Love it. Field of Ruin.
Hey, Field of Ruin has always been great, man.
Yeah.
It sounds like a bit of a suspicious proposition to bring a deck that sounds like it can never beat a Planeswalker ever into a format where the best deck is just loaded with Planeswalkers.
But I wonder if it was built because it's like, all right, well, I think there are a lot of people that are focused on this Planeswalker deck. They're like, okay, so how do you beat Planeswalkers? Get on the board. What I'm going to play is the deck that just destroys the board every turn and kills people with
level 2.
Yeah, level 2. We're getting deeper into the...
I often do that in tournaments and like trying to multi-level it, and then I just lose to the best deck, and I'm like, oh, that was dumb.
Because so that means that you're too smart for your own good. Because you think other people...
Well, also it means I didn't have any money, so I couldn't just buy a good deck.
All right, that's true.
I had to try to get creative.
Well, luckily in Arena, for the most part, you don't have to... The best card in the deck or in the set costs the same amount as the other janky mythic,
And yet I'm still brewing jank.
Still brewing jank, yeah. Well,
But as we just discussed, the best card is Field of Ruin, and that's uncommon.
that's an uncommon. So there you go.
Get it in your deck, folks.
You heard it first. Ryan said, Field of Ruin, worth a slot. Get 4 of them, put them in your deck. No matter what.
But there is one deck that you've mentioned a bunch of times. We haven't actually talked about it, and that's Runes.
All right.
True.
Runes.
Runes got a lot better because the worst thing about Runes was its mana base, and it got Jetmir's Garden.
Mm-hmm.
And I think pretty much nothing else, but that was a big enough improvement that the deck is sort of back. And
It was a big enough improvement that people started playing Fable of the Mirror Breaker because... And one copy of Legion Angel, and then you have more Legion Angels in your sideboard, which has been very helpful as a backup plan.
we're 1+3 Legion Angel people.
Yeah, none of these 2 and 2s. Get out of here.
No. That's nonsense.
1+3, and I've seen your deck lists that are 1+2. What?
Yeah, no. That is obviously
Yeah.
wrong.
Hey, all right, guys. Hot take: if you run Field of Ruin, it thins your deck for the Legion Angel play. So I'm just gonna throw that out.
All right. Well, okay. So we're playing mono white again. We're mono white Legion Angel.
No. He's recommending Field of Ruin in Nihil.
In your 3-color deck where your mana base was the worst problem.
Color deck.
You don't play any basic. You can't even go get a basic.
You just
after
stone raid
crack
yourself.
Field of Ruin.
It's so strong. It's just a power play, right? It's like attacking with an ornithopter. You gotta prove a point.
Hey,
That's true.
Fail to find and pass turn.
in my this is a completely different thing, but I have a mono red Zada, the hedge grinder, hedron, whatever. Anyway, Hedron grinder commander deck, and when I attack you with an ornithopter, I'm going to copy a bunch of combat tricks and kill you. So that's a message.
Oh,
Yes.
I've lost a lot of games to an ornithopter. A lot of games.
So block the ornithopter. Yes, I think, but I like runes right now, even though I am not doing very well. I still like runes. You're my baby.
I think Runes is the most powerful deck in the format. It's just easy to hate on if you so choose. And so it's like, if people know, it's one of those decks that people are going to forget about, and then it'll circle back, and nobody's playing any good cards against it, and then it's like, they just lose. But Jukai Naturalist is a card that, if you just run it out on turn 2, and I can't kill it, I probably lose the game. I'm sitting there on the other side of the table like, well, fuck. I'll just play my 2-drop and be prepared to lose next turn. And so it has a lot of raw power. Like Showdown of the Skulls, one of the most powerful cards. The Fable of the Mirror Breaker has shown itself to be one of the best cards in the format. And so this deck still has it. It's just... It just, like, beats... It's even with Jetmir's Garden, you know, it's still a little bit of a sketchy mana base. And, you know, like, if anyone decides to play Archon of Emeria, I don't know what you do.
Yeah, that's the thing that I've been having a problem with is not just Archon of Emeria, but also when people are playing you're playing mono white and they have a bunch of Brutal Cathars and they just pass the turn and flip them, and you're like, oh god, okay, well,
Right, because they know you.
I have no removal and I have to play all of my cards, and you're going to steal 2 of my creatures, so I guess I just play as many as I can, and it happens like every turn. It's really rough. But
I guess Thalia probably messes you up
and
too.
Thalia
ruins the
it
combo.
ruins the combo. So mono white is rough in a weird controlling way that doesn't get under you because you can go faster and bigger than them.
Right.
Because you have lifelink, so you don't care if you lose life. But holy moly, can be rough. But hey, if you're playing this deck,
But man, when Runes goes off, you're like, why doesn't everyone play this deck? Like when Runes has a good draw and just kind of dunks on
It
you.
really
with,
does.
Like, just have like several 8-power trampling lifelinkers.
Yeah,
at turn
and they've
4.
got
the fuck
They've
is
got a
this?
grip of 7 cards, and you're down.
Oh,
3.
yeah,
Like,
like-
how did that happen?
what is going on?
7 cards in hand, 3 exiled to Showdown of the Skulls.
Every time you play a card, you put a counter on something. So really, whenever you get Kiki Jiki, if people don't kill it, because usually they're killing other things, my favorite thing to count, like the copy, is usually just like the Generous Visitor, that you just like, all right, now okay, copy this, and now I'm going to play a bunch of stuff, get extra counters. It's great.
And you can give Kiki Jiki haste in this deck, right? Which is nice. I like incidental ways to give it haste, because the card is nuts
If you can do it right away
if you can actually activate it.
before it gets destroyed.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, closing thoughts for the standard format. I think the best way would be if you are playing this weekend in this championship, which deck would you pick? That seems like a good way to round this out. Jeff, I'll start with you. What deck are you going to play?
Okay. Presumably I'm trying to win, right?
Well, yeah, you're
Optimize.
playing in the tournament, so I would assume you're trying to win.
Yeah, usually I'm trying to win with my own deck, though.
Well,
Because, like, the real answer is, in all likelihood, I would play my Rakdos deck.
yeah.
But I think if you're looking for, like, a real answer, I would probably bring Esper, because I think it has the tools to beat anything. Like, even if something has a good matchup against it, what does that good mean? Like 55%? You know, like, you're never going to be a dominant favorite against this deck. And then there are matchups where this deck will be like 70%, like just not going to lose. I wouldn't build it the way that this list we've been looking at does. I think
There's some stuff in there.
3 Wandering Emperor is a big question mark for me. I would just play 4. And I would try to sneak in some more basics if possible. Because of, what we've been talking about with Field of Ruin. And I know people are like, the list is so tight, yada, yada, yada. It's like, well, you don't have to play Emeria's Call, okay? Like, that can be a plane.
It's a stretch.
You don't have to, like, you can add more lands. You don't have to play, like, 26 lands. You can play 27, add in another basic, cut the main deck duress or whatever. Like, there's definitely ways to get more basics into this deck. I'm not the biggest fan of, like, this particular like Fairy Vandal. One
but that's the archetype you would want to play, right? Like, yeah, you would play the
I would play a black-white deck that splashes blue for Kaito, basically.
Gotcha.
And Rafine.
Absolutely. Ryan, I'm going to end with you, but I think honestly, through this discussion, I think that I might just stick with like an oldie but a goodie. I'm gonna play mono white probably, so I don't have to deal with this Field of Ruin crap. And I also will have board presence to deal with planeswalkers, and I can get rid of Rafine without having to worry about damage. I think I like that.
Can you imagine if they'd never banned Faceless Haven?
Jeez.
crazy would mono
Wow. Yeah. Holy moly.
Insane.
So yeah, that's what I'm gonna. I think that's what I'm gonna to stick with. Ryan, what are you thinking?
I'm
Oh,
thinking.
he's obviously mono white.
Yeah.
Well, like it's already been taken, so I can't do it anymore. But I would think I'm leaning into this kind of turbo Jund hard ramp into this Moonveil Ragent situation with maybe 2 top end Ziatora and a lot of Riveteer's Charm, because I feel like with that kind of toolbox you have the answer to most things. Maybe not as quite the toolbox situation that the Esper deck has these days, but I just want to play Jund. So
Nice. Absolutely. I'm
I
pretty.
think there's a build of that deck that's real for sure.
Absolutely. And I think that it's definitely one of the ones that would be on fringe enough that like people wouldn't like people are not going into the tournament thinking I have to worry about Riveteer's Charm. You know what I mean? Like you're
Yeah.
going to get people with that. So I think that's a
And it's very good.
yeah. And it's also going to hit this it hits planeswalkers, so that's also going to be super super helpful.
Like even when you exile someone's graveyard, like when you're choosing that mode, that's a devastating play.
All right, with that, we are going to go to last call.
First 2 were so good, I had to have a third.
Yeah.
Love to hear that, guys. Really do. Means a lot.
Parallel Futures. Third pint up. Oof. All right, Ryan, do you feel the pressure? The pressure's on. It's rating time.
I need to hear the criticism. That's part of the job.
The shtick.
Being someone who makes products for people to enjoy. If you don't enjoy them, then I have failed.
All right, well,
Or I'll just blame Collective Arts.
before we get into it, as always, we need to talk about our rating system. So, we rate our beers on a scale of bronze to mythic, which is just like the tiers in Arena. Huh. Look at that. That just worked out. I don't know what happened. And as always, this has nothing to do with what tier you are in currently on Arena. Everyone's in a different tier at a different time. It doesn't matter. It's just a fun way to rate beers. However, bronze beers are trash. They're horrible. You can't drink them. You have to pour them out. They're a Belgian stout that did not work.
Yeah, we're fortunate enough that before tonight, there's never been a bronze beer on the show.
Sorry, I was just
Silver
taking that.
beers, these are macro brews or basically nothing going on.
Gold beers are fine, but you don't really think about them very often.
Platinum is solid. You would drink a platinum beer again.
Diamond beers are exceptional. These are some of your favorites, and you recommend these to your friends.
And Mythic, these are the absolute best of the best, the fin du monde of the world. You would recommend these to strangers or anyone who would listen.
Alrighty. So again, we are drinking Parallel Futures, a Schwarzbier, 5.1%, made by our friend right here, Ryan Oliver. All right, where do we want to start?
So
I mean,
before
I could start. Or you
All
can
right,
start.
Ryan, start us off. I really want to hear your thoughts.
Honestly, I would put this at a platinum. It's solid wood drink again, obviously, because it's my recipe. I can see some faults in it. I would have changed some of the malt bill to make it a little less caramelly and a little bit more bready. And I would have increased the bitterness just a little bit for balance, because I think it's leaning a little too sweet currently.
Interesting.
But that's me. You guys can rate it bronze, we'll take it.
Since I already threw, just so you know, we've never rated a beer bronze on the show, and they really have to be the jankiest brews that like you don't want. I also did not taste your Belgian stout, so sorry for just throwing that jab in there.
It was bronze for sure.
when you're like, you took 2 sips and you're looking at it like, I have so much left, that's when you know it's bronze.
Yep.
The fact that we drank 2 of them and opened a third means that it can't be bronze.
Absolutely.
I mean, we would have to really like you a lot if it was bronze.
The episode would have been over very early if it was bronze. So,
yeah. Well, before I answered, I did want to know you talked very briefly about Schwarzbiers, but I wanted to know a little more about them. Like, basically, all I know is dark lager, but like, what makes it a Schwarzbier versus just, let's say, a black lager?
So Schwarzbier, I've got my handy dandy beer judge certification program manual up here. Well, let me tell you about what I did for this beer and what I think qualifies it as a Schwarzbier. So, like, as far as malt base, pale malt is obviously included, but then there's a type of malt called Munich, which is a slightly darker, more bready, more caramelly type of malt that I use in this, as well as a dark Munich, which is more of the same, but slightly darker, more roasty. And then I used a black malt, heavily roasted, to give it color in a very, very small amount. Because if you use too much of this, it's going to get too roasty. It's going to be astringent, like bad coffee. All of these malts that I used in this brew were German bag malt, which I appreciate, imported from Best Malt in Bavaria. And the hops I used were also German noble varieties, so a hop called Magnum for bittering, which is just providing the balance between the sweet and the hop bitterness, and then a little bit of a hop called Tettnang to give kind of a tea or grassy note in the finish, and German lager yeast using like a 9 or 10 degree Celsius fermentation temperature, which is like traditional lager temperatures, to give you that nice, clean, crisp finish. And that's
I didn't realize lager temps were that low. I was thinking more like 15, 14.
It's
15.
cold. It's difficult to do at home, and it's meant to be done in, subterranean, essentially.
Yeah. Didn't they start to make them in, it was like caves and stuff? They started brewing, like they put the barrels in caves?
For sure, yeah. And the lager, I think the word in German means like to store, or like to... Yeah, I think it's store to storage or something like that. It's like underground barrels. And with that process, over like a month or 2 months, you develop these very fine, minor sulfur, crisp characteristics that give you a really nice finish on the beer.
So the Schwarzbier part, it's because you used all of these German...
Yes, and because of the color, and because it's a lager. And I guess, you call a Schwarzbier a black lager, and they would be synonymous in the way that, like, a square is a rectangle, but a rectangle is not always a square kind of scenario. The history on Schwarzbier, I was looking it up for this episode, is a bit dodgy. It's like 1100, 1200 AD in Germany. The first notions of this word started to surface in circles, but back then they didn't have the capability to kiln malt in a very, very light capacity like we have today. So when you think lager, you think like your Bud Lights, your Molson Canadians of the world, and that's a very pale, pale, pale beer. But with crude roasting regimen and equipment, you could only have dark beer. So I imagine that this kind of like they used lager yeast that came from Patagonia in South America, but with these darker malts, so they got this weird balance. And then eventually they started using Pilsner malts and Munich malts or Vienna malts to kind of add to the grain bill, and eventually become modern Schwarzbier or dark lager.
Wow. This is fascinating. This is the most in-depth This is the most in-depth beer review we've ever had, and I love it. I love every bit of this. So thank you for gracing us with your knowledge. This is wonderful. Wow.
I gotta say, it's a tasty beer. It's going to my head just a little bit, so I apologize for that. If there's a little bit of
no, that's what the show is about.
That's most of the show, to be fair. Jeff, what are your thoughts? What do you feel?
Okay, well now I'm just running through my head to see if I can taste any of what he's telling me.
Yeah.
Beer. But I like it. I think I like it a bit more than Ryan does. I've always actually been partial to, despite the fact that I don't love lagers, I've always had a soft spot for dark lagers. Like, I find that sometimes for me, lagers can come across a bit bland. Like, the flavors are a bit too subtle. And when you use the dark lagers, that sort of adds that back in for me. It's like a little boost of flavor combined with the really crisp finish that lagers, that people love lagers for. When I was drinking this one, I do remember I was still hit with a bit of, like, my main complaint about lagers is what, to me, I identify as, like, not enough body, I guess. I'm wondering if that sort of lines up with what you're saying about bready, trying to make it breadier. Maybe that's what I'm tasting as well, like too sweet and not sort of bready enough. But I always think of this as like I'd like a little extra sort of malt flavor, a little extra body to it. But otherwise, I think it's really refreshing and really good. So I'm going to give this Diamond. I
definitely agree with that, because it also feels extremely refreshing while also having all these nice kind of bitter notes. And I liked the maltiness. I don't feel like I'm missing any of this breadiness that you're talking about. And this feels like in comparison to just like black lagers, like this is such a good example of like, if I'm thinking about a black lager, this is what I would hope to be pouring in my glass. So this is definitely a diamond, and it's definitely one that like, it's diamond into mythic in the sense that like, if I'm standing at a store and someone's looking at that, I'm going to give them a mini commercial about it. Like I will try to convince them to buy it.
So you got to listen to our episode to get the full.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not a commercial about the show, but a commercial about like, you should buy this beer because, try to explain it in the best way that I can without saying that I know the person that had the recipe, because I'm sure that they wouldn't buy it if they thought it was like a biased but no, this is absolutely,
which it is.
Yeah, but it's also wonderful, and I'm so happy that I have another one in my fridge, because I was hoping I was gonna like it, so I made sure to get a bunch, and it's making me rethink that I bought 4 and I did not buy enough. So that is how I feel.
I've had enough of Ryan's beer to know I was going to like it.
Yeah.
When you were moving, when you was going off to Brewers College, I remember you were moving and you just had like 6 or 7 different beers that you had made, and you still had them all, and you had like a drink all my beer party.
The Belgian great. Stout made a appearance at that for sure.
Yeah. After you had all of the other beers, then maybe you'd be willing to tackle the Belgian Stout.
All right.
Really, you didn't drink all like 25 liters of that one?
Oh, jeez. I feel like I've been issued a bit of a challenge. Like I got to try to rebrew that with the knowledge I have now, and see if I can make it palatable.
I am
you're
so
like
down
shooting for gold.
Ryan, if you make that beer, if you make the Belgian Stout, we'll do it on the show. Absolutely. So,
yeah.
Hell,
we'll have you back,
yes.
And we'll do the Belgian Stout.
Yeah.
I'd be so happy to come back. We got to pick like a suitable set or conversation or format topic to make.
Yeah.
Some
janky brews.
Fit with
Maybe we'll talk about some janky brews.
Yeah.
There you go.
We'll talk about brewing. Yeah. I can't wait to go to Fairweather and see it on the menu.
Yeah.
Yes. Please come down.
Soon, very soon. But anyway, Ryan, thank you so much for being our first guest. It's been so fun having you here. And it's just so nice to have another voice on the podcast, not just Jeff.
and someone who actually knows about beer,
That is the best thing. Having someone who really knows about beer is so helpful. So
whatever my hot take about Field of Ruin is, I do know a little bit about beer.
Quite a bit.
Play more Jund. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, if you want to be 45% against everything, that's what it's all about.
So with that, it is closing time. You can always reach us at Arena Regulars on Twitter and Instagram.
You can also find us on MTG Arena under the username Arena Regulars Podcast.
And you can find me personally at Zulberg, that is ZeulBerg on Twitter and Instagram. But Jeff, where can they find you?
I have Twitter. It's at BluesBrewsMTG, BluesBrewsMTG.
And Ryan, where could our listeners find you if they're interested in asking you any brewing tips, either beer related or magic related?
That's a great question. My usual handle is Sithroth in multiple formats. SitherOth, or you can find me at Fairweather Brewing Company in Hamilton.
You know what? Do
You
that.
play against someone on Arena who just Field of Ruins you and never gets a land when they do it. That's probably right.
That's probably right.
Just know it was me.
Yeah. But in any case, go pick up yourself a bottle or 5 of Parallel Futures and then go down to Fairweather Brewing to go taste some more of Ryan's tasty brews. Also, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, and iTunes, anywhere that you're listening to us right now. Just tell us what you thought about this, and who should be our next special guest or what brew we should drink next. This has been the Arena Regulars,
reminding you that Zach is too good for homebrews.
And from all of us here, good night.
All right, that's fine.